What's good, everybody? Injured here, giving you another guide, this time here for Ashka. If you're sick of playing like a little baby candle, stay tuned for this guide to find out how to be Ashka the Molten Fury. Alright, so first off with the M1 we have Fireball, which Ashka actually has a lot of movement speed that he retains through his M1, so Ashka is really good at trading M1s. Also has a very high attack speed with his M1, so can be really good at trading M1s. Keep that in mind. But the other thing that an M1 does is it keeps Ignite on a character, and when we look at the next skill, we'll talk about what that does. And so I believe the next one's called Firestorm. It is, yeah. So you channel and you cast 3 bolts. You see those bolts pop up over his head actually. And so if you're playing against Ashka, keep that in mind. You'll know where he's at, how many he has, etc. But as you see, when you hit that, you get Ignite up here, which continues to burn, and then you hit the M1s and it resets the cooldown. Now you cannot kill somebody with the Ignite, I don't believe. I think damage over time does not kill in this game, but it'll get them very, very low. And so that's how you get Ignite onto people. And then there's going to be a lot of different Battlerites that we spec into to help increase the Ignite opportunities. But right now, that's basically your main way in his kit, is through his M2, which is his right click, to put Ignite through Firestorm. Now, his next skill is Searing Flight, which it moves to a target location. It deals damage in that target location, and it basically is his get out of jail free card. You want to be careful how you use this. I see a lot of players using that as an engage very early in the level, but outside of that and his E, he doesn't have any other real mobility. And so I think if you're using it offensively, you can really set yourself up for failure. So in my opinion, you want to hold on to your space. You don't want to use that aggressively unless you're chasing down for a kill. There are a few opportunities where you will do that. His Q is AoE on the ground, and you see it inflicts stun and also does damage. So that's the big I don't know if setup is the right, but it can really help setup. But it's a really nice skill. You need to start weaving that in. Like, don't just sit there in M1. You want to make sure that you're weaving in your stun as much as you can into there, so you can try to stun them, get some free damage in, etc. So make sure to start incorporating your Q, and then your E is Molten Fist. And so Molten Fist, as you'll see, you'll go into a line. You're actually invulnerable in that time period as well as you are when you use your space. So you're invulnerable there, and when you hit somebody, you push them back, and then you actually bounce back a little bit, and you're invulnerable in that time frame too. So he's got a lot of invulnerability frames, and that's a real big part of his kit, is learning how to incorporate that into his kit. And make sure to be using your E as an opportunity to help peel some melee off of you, and don't just sit there and M1 in the face, because if you can push them back, so again, you'll sit there, you'll push them back, and it says it snares them, so you're going to slow them a little bit, and then as they try to come back in, you'll be able to just keep peppering them with M1s or whatever you want to. And so next is going to be Firewall, and the Firewall does what it says, drops a Firewall. Now the really important part about this, which people really need to use, is that it stops enemy projectiles, as you see right there. And so that is absolutely huge. This is what makes Igniter an absolute beast. I'm sorry, I said Igniter, Ashka. This is what makes Ashka an absolute beast, because especially like against the Taya, oh my goodness, it wrecks Taya. And so you can use it to stop a snipe, any projectile. Heals, if you're fighting with a melee, and you might want to drop it here, and you're fighting with a melee, and now the healer won't be able to heal their melee. And so it's just really, really good. You need to incorporate that into your gameplay as much as you can. And so I'm going to talk about the EX skills now. It's on his Q and his space. His space actually costs 2 energy, but it's because it is awesome. And so if you're dueling, you're getting a little low, and you use that, it's called Pure Fire, and you see you start doing a little bit more damage, and your attacks heal, which is sick. Actually, you do the same damage. I thought you did more damage. You don't. I lied. You do the same damage, but they heal, which is really, really awesome. And so it can be a great opportunity for you to keep some sustain. And then your Q is an AoE Petrify, which is really nice again when you're taking really high pressure, and that only costs 1 energy. So make sure to start incorporating those, because Petrifies are awesome. It can really help set up some big damage. Now the ultimate is Infernal Scorch, and what it does is it goes in a line and it does damage. It knocks up, so it does a little mini stun, and it puts ignite. And actually I forgot to say, sorry, but the Firewall puts ignite on people if they walk through it too. So that's another standard way, but it costs 25 energy. So your ult will then knock people up, so it stuns them, it does big damage, and then it also puts ignite on them. And so you're going to want to hit them with the M1s to keep ignite, to keep that damage over time. And so one of the tricks here is, I'm going to like talk about combos and kind of play style now, is with your M2 you want to try to hit a couple different people, and that way you can keep ignite on a couple different people. That's how you're going to get really big damage out of Ashka. And so that's why if you get a double ult, you can, you're going to attack this person, then you attack that person, then you attack this person, then you attack that person if they have ignite on them, because you want to keep that ignite ticking. So it's just going to really increase your damage and get some, it's going to spread the damage too, so that way it's a little bit harder on the healer. So a couple combos. If you drop a stun and you are 100% sure it's going to hit, I almost always queue up my M2, because it has a pretty sizable windup. But if you hit and I'm like, oh, that's going to hit, I start it, it stuns, and that first one will hit almost always, which will guarantee you almost a second hit, which will put out some pretty big damage. And so try to keep that in mind. Also, sometimes when a melee's on me, if I think about it, I'm not really good about this one. I'm not really good at landing it, and that's why I don't always do it. You can drop the stun behind, and then you see I pushed and stunned there. And so that's a way to kind of set up and maybe get some distance. It might be a little bit of a waste to actually set it up that way. It might be better to just use your Q as if there's a melee on you, just drop it on yourself, and then you back up that little bit. It's going to help create a little bit of space. And then, because then what you can do is it might kill him, but you drop it on yourself, it gets hit, and then you hit him with an E to push him away. That might be even better. Like, I wouldn't set it up as a combo, but it's something to keep in mind. Like, if you misplace your Q, you're going to want to push somebody into it and try to get them to get hit there, because then you're going to do a little bit more damage, etc. Another combo for him is actually an alt setup, which you see a lot in the high end. Is what people will do is, especially when they're trying to get onto a healer or something like that, they're going to space in to get a little bit of damage there. So one of the few times you space in, and then immediately alt. And when you do that, you can get some really serious damage. I want to see what it is here. I'm not actually sure. So it's 10 damage, and then the alt is going to be 36. So it's very quick 46 damage. Plus you're going to get a little bit of extra damage on them standing in the fire, which will take damage over time. Plus they're going to have the ignite taking a little bit extra damage. You're going to get some pretty gnarly damage on them. So let's talk about the orb play here a little bit. The orb is so important, as you know, and one of the best ways for Ashka, I almost said igniter again, for Ashka to do it. So you get it low, and you know his M1 does 12 damage, and you know his Q does 20 damage. So what that means is at 32 damage, you have a pretty good opportunity to steal this. And so a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll put the stun underneath, because the other thing that does is going to help zone some melee on this. And so you drop your stun, and then you try to auto attack at the same time that your stun goes off. Really good opportunity to try and steal that middle orb. The other thing that people will do is, like, if they're fighting with somebody out here on the side, is you can use your E to push it towards your teammate, and now you've helped guarantee the orb. So that's a big way to affect the orb play. Now the other thing too is your M2s have a little bit of a pushback, and so as you see there, you can use that to help push it out of the middle or push it somewhere and do quite a bit of damage to it. But I think the best setup is going to be your stun M1. Again, it's 32 damage, so that can almost contest a snipe from Jade if you're going to try to contest that snipe from Jade. The other thing to do while orb made me think is, again, that firewall. You put a firewall on the other side, and now the enemy team's not going to be able to get that. It's going to stop all their incoming projectiles, etc., and going to help you get that middle orb, which again is so important. So other than that, Ashka really is about winning your M1 trades, because you're mobile, you have high attack speed, and you also then have great mobility skills to avoid incoming damage. This is what Ashka's all about. And then if you start incorporating those few combos, which are mainly dropping a stun on yourself and then pushing them back. And then the other thing is too, is if you're taking really high pressure, you petrify, and then as you fall back, you can M2 and you set up your M2s onto them and you get a little bit of space. To me, and again, you want to wait on the petrify because you don't want to do damage onto the shield. You want to do damage onto them. So you want to try and time it right. But those are the big ways that you're setting up your damage. Otherwise, Ashka's all about hitting your M1s. If you're not going to do a good job hitting your M1s, you're not going to do a good job on Ashka, just to be honest. And then the other thing is set up your space alt combos, because that can be pretty big damage. And it can be pretty hard for some of those healers to get away from. Just make sure they don't have escapes if they're healers with escapes. So, let's take a look at Battlerite. So, the first one is almost always going to be Blaze, to be honest. I'm not going to super look at these. Some people might get knockout. I think that's not the best choice. I think Blaze is really good because what it does is it, again, makes you more mobile. Your M1 trades are going to be even better. And what it does is it makes your next M1 a Fireball. So I'll show you this. And so now they got Ignite on them. So that's another way to add Ignite. And again, that's going to put your damage way, way up. So in my opinion, always get Blaze. It's really, really strong. Next one, most people are going to get Firewall. Again, I think that one's really good. Lava Punch, reducing the cooldown, is kind of meh. And then Char, this is one I would maybe consider because it's going to add another Ignite opportunity into your kit, which will help your combos and just your keeping Ignite up a little bit better. But in my opinion, having the extra survivability here can be pretty nice, and again, it helps you reposition out of damage and then more efficiently trade because you're not taking as much damage because of the shield. So next one, I would almost always get Conflagration. I think there's rare occasions where you might get Ember Fire because you don't have a healer or something, but I would still probably get Conflagration. And then the Firestorm Bolts reduce the cooldown of Searing Flight. I'd still probably rather have Conflagration. And so this is what it does. Conflagration is when you drop your Firewall, any bolt that goes through there becomes the same as your M2 bolt. So what that means is you're going to be doing more damage and you're going to be keeping Ignite up. And so again, if you can, try to hit 2 people with that because you want to try to get Ignite on many people, or you're trying to finish off somebody. So but again, what that means is you're not going to take damage from the front because you have your Firewall, and you're going to be doing big damage now onto your person. Onto who you're attacking is what I mean by your person. So Ignite reduces movement speed. I'm not super worried about that because of how mobile you are and how quick you are in M1 trades. I wouldn't super worry about that. And then Slayer doing increased damage, I would say is kind of meh. I would actually get the Inspiration because that's going to let you have a little bit more energy. Your energy gain is going to be up. You're going to try to be using Firewall as much as you can. And so that's going to just make it that much better because you're getting high energy gain. You're going to be able to use Firewall and get your ult up. I think that's most important. So next is that the Infernal Scorch inflicts a snare, which means that when they're sitting in that like lava like strip, they're going to be slowed. I wouldn't get that one. I usually get the Everlasting Fire, which gives you pure fire at the end of your ult, which means you're going to be healing. And again, I just think it helps you survive a little bit better. And I don't know, I just think it's a lot better because right now you already do tons and tons and tons and tons of damage. So getting a little extra damage, does that really matter? Not really. What matters is you stay alive after your ult. And so I think Everlasting Fire is absolutely the best pick. So that's my guide for Ashka. I hope you guys like it. Ashka is one of the strongest range in the game right now. I wouldn't be surprised to see him get toned down here a little bit in the future. I have quite a few games of people playing Ashka because of the tournaments that I've casted. I really think you should check those out. I'm going to link them to you. And it's really just been like a character played like crazy. It just overplayed in my opinion, and that's why I think she's going to get toned. So hope you enjoyed that guide. Hope you were able to learn something a little bit. In my opinion, Ashka is one of the more straightforward characters. You just got to learn how to hit all your stuff with Ashka. And so thank you for tuning in. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and check out some of my other guides and videos going on. Peace out and welcome to the most positive place in gaming.